not the unibrow. I forgot what they really called it. We'll find out in 8 to 10 seconds. Welcome, everybody, to Flat Earth Nation. It is a Flat Earth Nation. Don't let them tell you anything else unless they're willing to debate you in a fair and honest way. It's unimate, not unibrow. Roll it.
ये इस तरह का एक कॉन्सेप्ट रखा जिसके अंदर लोगों को इंसेंटिव दिया गया और हेल्थ फूड को बेचने के लिए उसकी सेल को इंक्रीज करने के लिए उसके लिए डायरेक्ट सेलिंग मॉडल का यूज होने लगा। उसके बाद 1951 में एक टपरवेयर
1951 Tupperware, the very first multi-level marketing plan scheme was in 1885. The Southwest publisher, they used door-to-door selling. That was the business to customer model, quickly followed by Avon, I believe, 1910 Credit Association, 1930s, the Stanley Home Products, 1945 Neutral Light, 1951 Tupperware, perfecter of the IBM punch cards and also introducer of the Ultimate, or actually it's the first big company that I knew of that used the Ultimate in these recent studies, was the first industrial robot, which worked on a General Motors assembly line at the Island Fisher Guide plant in Ewing Township, New Jersey, 1961. We're learning this together. Tupperware was in business for 10 years or so without it. It was invented by a George Duvall in the 1950s using his original patent filed in 1954, granted in 61. That patent begins. The present invention relates to the automatic operation of machinery, particularly the handling apparatus, and to automatic control apparatus, not apparati, suited for such machinery. Badoom, check this out. The Unimate also appeared on the Tonight Show hosted by Johnny Carson, on which it knocked a golf ball into a cup, poured a beer, waved an orchestra conductor's baton, I believe that would have been Al Severinsen at the time, and grasped an accordion and waved it around in 2003. Unimate. The Unimate was inducted into the Robot Hall of Fame. We don't have time to get into it. Fictional robot called Unimate appears in the DC comic line. The original old Unimate consists of a large computer-like box joined to another box and was connected to an arm with systematic tasks stored in drum memory. Physical sketch of the Unimate. Just putting a time on it, because when you can put a time on things like that, you can put a time on what is Greek, symposium, the ancient Greek. We're not looking for any of the other uses of symposium. We're looking for the ancient Greek, where these things get started. Greek symposium means to drink together, to drink together. I'm saying they're going to spin it towards Bacchus. Was part of a banquet that took place after the meal, something they used to talk a lot about in the Roman times, but don't anymore, about the purging, whatnot, when drinking for pleasure was accompanied by music, dancing, recitals, or conversation. Literary works that describe or take place at a symposium include two Socratic dialogues, Plato's Symposium and Xenophon's Symposium, as well as a number of Greek poems, such as the eulogies of the theologians of Megara. In a modern use, it has come to mean an academic conference or meeting such as a scientific conference. Well, that's where I usually put it on. I've been to a symposium and was never even offered a drink. The equivalent of a Greek symposium in Roman society is this word that we see all the time, convivium, Hellenistic societal institution. I'm going to be trying to get to this info was coming fast and furious in waves all day. Don't know how much we're going to be able to get through at one time, but I know we're going to Etruscan here relatively shortly. Symposia were usually held in the andron, a big hall, a gymnasium type of a situation, the men's quarters of the household. Participants or symposiasts would recline. Reclining on pillows was a big deal in their time. I remember a few other famous reclining moments where the next one who dips his bread in my stew is going to be the one who betrayed me, said the Lord Jesus Christ. You know what? Let's just save that bandwidth. Symposia were often held for specific reasons. Usually the most famous of all was the dialogue. It was hosted by the poet Agathon on the occasion of his first victory at the theater contest. According to Plato's account, the celebration was upstaged by the unexpected entrance of the toast of the town, the young Alcibiades, dropping in drunken and nearly naked, having just left another symposium. What? So here's some symposium stuff. This is just like one of those like, what? Who knew? Symposium. Because, I'm trying to get to something, right? It's got to be something. I'm trying to get to the Etruscans. What do we got here? Fabrito. Really? That's as big as this picture gets? I like my pictures like I like my cups of coffee. Big. We're leaving that page. There you go. Remember how Doug Bartles used to go, why do you always do that? You're starting at the bottom. Then he started making videos and he's there like, oh, you leave the tabs open when you're done studying. And then we go back there. Oh, I get it now. You'll get it now. Because I'm going to just diffuse that argument. Everybody thinks that I think I'm the only prophet. No, I'm just one of them. I'm the one you're listening to right now. But there's got to be those other, 2,000, 6,000 out there. But who are you listening to now? Let's talk about Etruscan art, not just in Berlin, but around the world. The first one that have the girl Etruscan and the guy Etruscan reclining together. It says perhaps at a wine banquet because there's a complete lack of wine to be found on the sculpture site. So they were just happily reposing. Etruscan culture, antiquity for beginners. Diving into Etruscan history is easy since so little is known about them. We cannot locate the grave of even a single Etruscan king. Well, maybe you're just calling them something different. No writing, no poems, no Homer. The Romans eventually broke away from Greek authors and literatures and developed their own. Horace, for example, but not the Etruscans. They're the misstripped people of the world. They've got sarcophagus. They've got bracelets that Goliath could wear. That's my belt. That's a belt for me. Look at this. This is the lion necklace. It's a circa 650 BC. So they say Babylonian? No, no. They say there's some X-rated type stuff in some of those frescoes in the Etruscan tombs. Both men and women wore gold, gilded, and bejeweled bracelets, armbands, necklaces, and tiaras. The artisan would heat the gold and affix it by a technique of granulation into patterns on a gold base. Unfortunately, since no kilns or goldsmith workshops have been found, modern archaeologists cannot entirely recover these Etruscan techniques. What? No, no forensics. Uh, the forensic shows on TV that have all of those tracking abilities, the NCIS and all of that. Yep. Men and women of the wealthy upper classes dressed alike both donned a long kibana, precursor to the Roman toga. Oh, man. Sure it was. The Etruscan language, that's where we're going. What is it? The Etruscans borrowed the Greek alphabet. Okay. To write down their own language. I've been trying to sneak a sip of coffee there. What was the language? Mostly we know what it is not Indo-European like Greek or Latin, not related to the Basque, Hungarian, Finnish, or other orphan train languages that are been stomped out without mercy, without an understanding of their own language. Etruscans' X-rated culture is more opaque to us than our other long ago. Opaque means that it's hazy to see through. Here's a folded linen codex book on an Etruscan sarcophagus. What a sarcophagus? That sounds Egyptian. And a folded linen codex. Well, those are not that rare. The Zagreb mummy, the Egyptian female Nessie Hinsu. Wow, she looks big. I mean, look at she looks tall. I want her on my volleyball team. The Etruscan linen book unfolded, close up of the Etruscan letters on the linen above that was wrapping the Egyptian female. Okay, we got to keep going. Here's a close up of it. Here's the National Museum, just a mud flood building that hey, look what we got, a National Museum, because listen to the story here of this Lenin, the mummy of Zagreb, linen shroud. It's currently in the National Museum of Archaeology in Zagreb, Croatia. The shroud was originally a codex book made of linen. At some point in time, the folded book was cut into strips to use as a shroud for an Egyptian female mummy. Her name was Nessie Hinsu, wife of a divine tailor from Thebes in Peter Hansu. Folded linen codex. The Etruscan letters were written in black ink, and the columns were marked with a thin line of red ink. No mention of any Tartarian tattoos. They find them on the Tartarian princesses. Usually they've all been found with that sensimilla. How did an Egyptian mummy enshrouded in one of the few recorded Etruscan documents end up in Croatia? Good question. In 1848, many Europeans revolted against anything and everything the oppressive and authoritarian regimes of their day, much like the American colonists had done a mere 75 years earlier. Well, wow, 75 years earlier than us right now brings us right back to the invention of the Tupperware robot. So anyway, this guy, he's just traveling around, but these Europeans lost, and one of them, a Croatian nobleman named Macalberich escaped to Egypt. Okay, we're going to hear a different story real soon. There, he bought the mummy to add to his collection in Vienna. He gave the mummy to the National Museum of Zagreb in 1859. Here you go. I am tired of this being in my front room. At his bequest, when his bequest arrived, other items had been added, including jewelry and the mummified head of a cat. Scholars at first thought the writing on the linen were Egyptian because it doesn't look Egyptian. It took 30 years to decide that they were Etruscan because they didn't look Egyptian. The Etruscan linen book was restored in the 1980s. It survived Balkan Wars in the 1990s, and it's stored in this mud flood building. They don't have any graves of the kings, but they have some pictures, and he's wearing the precursor to a toga. But don't tell me that if you'd had a six-pack ab like that, you wouldn't be looking for a half toga. Come on. Oh my goodness. Probably a female, I guess. And here's that bronze liver of Piancia. We've done whole shows or portions of them just on that. Four important divisions or events the Etruscan diviner called a hrupspex if male or nephra if female would sacrifice a sheep according to strict rituals. After examining its entrails, the diviner mapped the surface of its liver into sections of the sky. Perfect alignment was everything. So I guess they did them and they matched up perfectly. And you can trace those people, you symposium hunters. There's that picture. There's the mummy. Now let's just get the history. Mummy bought during his visit to Egypt in 1848, 1849. His brother, Yia, donated it to Yugoslav Academy in 1862. It is now permanently stored in Croatia. The German Egyptologist discovered an inscription he did not know belonged to the Etruscans. In 1891, the Viennese professor and Egyptologist Dr. Jacob Kroll discovered that the mummy's bandages actually hid the longest preserved Etruscan inscription in the world. During the 1980s, the bandages were thoroughly restored, reconstructed, rephotographed with infrared rays and the paleographic analysis and radiocarbon determined its age at about 400 years before Christ. Putting it in my time schedule, that would mean that it is 1730 years approximately. Where's the part about the guy stored it in his house? The canvas was about 1,030 words, preserved in 5 subsequently cut scripts that wrapped the Egyptian mummy. The Egyptian mummy. The length of the whole book was 340 centimeters, and the width at the widest strip is 35 centimeters. The text is arranged in 12 columns with different numbers of rows from 26 to 36. It is supposed to contain a series of ritual regulations about symposiums and when and where and how you're supposed to throw up. I'm just kidding. It's known as the Liber Lientius Zagrabianus, and it's the longest Etruscan text. The fabric of the book was preserved when it was used for mummy wrappings in Ptolemaic Egypt. A little more look at the phoenix there. Well, the mummy was bought in Alexandria in 1848, and since it's been in that thing. And then, so here it was. Here they call him in 1848, old Mike was a low-ranking Croatian official in the Hungarian royal chancery. He resigned his post because that's what they do. And he says, I'm going to take a tour of several countries because that's what you are probably planning to do right now, too. And one of them was Egypt. And while he was still in Alexandria, who knows, maybe the library hadn't been burned down yet, he purchased a sarcophagus in Egypt, had a female mummy, and he took it home, displayed it in his home, standing it upright in the corner of his sitting room. At some point, he removed the linen wrappings and put them on display in a separate glass case. And somehow he ended up donating a cat, mummy, and something else. William Sherwood Fox was a Canadian classical scholar. Notable positions in his academic career include assistant professor at Princeton from 1911 to 1917. Wait, born in 1778? That's pretty young to be a professor, and then boom, moving right up to the Western University of London, Ontario. Well, anyway, I've got his PhD dissertation here. And let's see what it's about. The tabulae definitions of Johns Hopkins University. In the year 1908, the Department of Classical Archaeology of the Johns Hopkins University, and those are two last names, Johns and Hopkins, that founded that, acquired several tabula definitions, properly known as curse tablets. That's where we were going. They were written in that Etruscan language, and they were doing that magic and witchcraft cursey stuff. That's what it was. That's what it was. And he wrote he got his PhD because of this. Through the study of the tablets themselves, has led to the conviction that they did actually originate in the city of Rome. This point will be fully discussed at the proper time. The tablets were in two distinct divisions. One of these consisted of a nail, 0.127 meters in length, the point of which was cloven into two long, sharp splinters, each half as long as the whole nail. About the broad head were tightly bound by a thick accumulation of rust, many exceedingly thin fragments of lead. On one side, 25 layers could be counted. On the opposite side, 28. The greatest width of these were, but, well, what were they? What were they? Besides what color? They were curses dug out of a well. First step toward the reconstruction of the tablets was to select the loose fragments and read them. So it turned out on page 114 that he's come to the conclusion, after getting to be Dr. Fox, there are many different formulas for these curses employed, and these vary according to whether a deity is asked to consign the victims to the lower regions, or whether the author of the curse does so directly without such an appeal. The verb trado is used as it happens in both cases. Trade Plutone, with an appeal to the god, the trado, where the cursor performs the action himself. But they are, I kid you not, they were getting the curses and throwing them in wells, and it wasn't that long ago. Let's keep going here. This is a Roman lead curse tablet, one of the ones that they found. This particular tablet from the Johns Hopkins collection was found rolled together with 4 others. The Latin name for a curse is defixio, which means to pin down. while the individual tablets are stand ins for the cursed person. The nail symbolized their pinning down. All five tablets they have were written in Latin by the same hand. So curses are in Etruscan and curses are in Latin. They have these ones that were published in that dissertation that we've already looked at. I would have liked to know that it was that easy to get to. Let's see what we have here. What is a curse tablet? It's just going to talk about the Roman Greco world. The tablets were used to ask gods, place spirits, or the deceased to perform an action on a person or object, or otherwise compel the subject of the curse. There is a one right there. And there's another one of the 130 Bath curse tablets. The inscription in British Latin translates as, "May he who carries off Bilibia from me become liquid as the water. May she who so obscenely devoured her become dumb." Curses and curses, and they were doing curses. And you know what? We weren't supposed to be doing that. Jesus warned, hey, don't be doing that. Looks like George Gilbert Scott has taken center stage. Let's find out who he is. He was the Gothic revival. Oh, I know. We're going to be looking at a lot of revivals. Why did they have so many revivals? And if I'm changing gears here, if you think I'm changing gears here, it's only because I might be changing gears here, but we don't know that yet. This could all tie in to Etruscan languages, mummies. George, what are you here for? Who are you? Oh, revivals, workhouses, Albert Memorial, cathedrals, colleges, early works, parishes, doing this one here. He did good on that. Good work, George. Good work, George. Mr. George Gilbert Scott, founder of Watson Company. Well, it's a long one. Oh, he was a revival person. He must have done all of these public works. So we're looking at the revival heads and how it's just, again, their level of work is just crazy. He did all of them. Bridges, big bubbles, no troubles. How about a motel, hotel? They'll leave the light on for you. How about another hotel, hospital type? Well, redundancy and non-originality. His standard operating procedure just seemed like blow them away with oversized buildings that we call mud flood antique architecture. Antiquitect, one of those new words that we like. He show me the buildings. I'll design one a day for the rest of the month, and that'll be good for a week of building for you guys. I'll keep you all busy. Wow. Even restorations with other people. Who knew? And what he actually was doing was ordering out of a kit, just saying, look, let's just embellish this one up and boom, we'll do that. So what he was in charge of was buying the embellishments to redecorate the same old brick buildings that we Egyptians built. Renaissance revival architecture, please. Neo, sometimes Renaissance, a group of the 1800s architectural revival styles. It was neither Greek revival nor Gothic revival, but which instead a nude, drew on inspiration from a wide range of classicizing Italian modes. That's your Renaissance revival architects. And really, all I'm trying to tell you is that it's just what catalog they redecorated their mud flood buildings from. Yummy. Renaissance style. Renaissance flourishing Chateau de Chambord. A little bit of it, embellishments and flourishments, Moorish architecture to the bone. Go notes here, Romanesque revival. Copper top and a little less embellishment, but still it'll last. It's good enough. We'll keep the stiff upper lip we'll add to the party on redecorating some of our architecture, but we love it. We do everything. And we have it in the United States. We have it in Britain. We were the ones who didn't get embellished as much. Late to the party, Tartare, Moorish revival architecture. It's one of the exotic revival architectural styles that were adopted by architects of Europe and the Americas in the wake of the Romantic fascination with all things Oriental. What? In history, literature, and cultural studies, Orientalism is the imitation or depiction of aspects in the Eastern world. These depictions, usually done by writers, designers, and artists from the West, in particular, Orientalist paintings, reached its height of popularity in the mid 1800s, part of a widening vocabulary of articulated decorative ornament drawn from catalogs, historical sources beyond familiar classical and Gothic modes. Neo-Moorish architecture drew on elements from classic Moorish architecture and the made-up religion of Islam architecture, which is that the same picture, just a little bit of a wider shot? Uh-huh. 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 Well, in this picture of that same thing, it mentions Moors twice. And it even calls it Moorish architecture. Here's the same picture cropped. No mention of it, I said in an Italian voice, because somebody said just a crop of the photo, it'll be okay. The Moorish gardens built in Norfolk in 1812 were an unusual touch at the time, a parallel to Chenery as a dream vision of fanciful whimsy, because that's what they could afford to do back then. It wasn't meant to be taken serious. Come on. It was just a wink and a nod to, hey, we like your stuff. Here's a Moorish castle in Fredericksburg, Alhambra. I think that's in Sweden. Are you in Denmark? What's the difference, right? Come on, bring it on. That Washington Irving, the catch-all of flat Earth. Oh, nobody ever believed in it. Well, he was also used to spread these fanciful tales in Tales of Alhambra, 1832. First brought Moorish Andalusia into readers' imagination, and the first neo-Moorish structures was Aranistan. It was a Moorish revival mansion in Bridgeport, Connecticut. At this beautiful seat, Barnum played host to such famous contemporaries. Yeah, there's one born every minute if you're buying that one. Anybody, 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 anybody. Anybody think that we need to take a harder look at the Alhambra, the Moors? Where were they? Who were they? Why don't we want to talk about it? They had a Moorish revival of architecture in Bosnia Herzegovina, and that would explain why it's all Moorish. How much Moorish can you stand? Well, it depends on how much you want to understand and claim to be a truther, and I'll go where the truth leads me. Because they have all kinds of Moorish revival architecture. I couldn't show them all to you. We don't have, we're taking our time, but we don't have that kind of time. As much as I appreciate you staying with me this far, we've just started. We have to talk about High Victorian Gothic. It was an eclectic architectural style. It was seen by architectural historians as either a sub-style of the broader Gothic revival or a separate style in its own right. Well, styles, red bricks, white bricks, and Antiquitech. Here's one of the two Gothic styled lanterns from Bath Abbey. And this one, of course, well, Sir George Gilbert Scott. He did everything. He did everything. He got himself a knighthood. This champion of all things medieval worked on over 300 churches and cathedrals, including the big ones, Westminster and Bath Abbeys. He was directing operations in Bath for 14 years. I discovered this, one of the two such Gothic style metal and glass lanterns amidst the dust, just left to rust. Boom, de boom, boom, chocka boom. So what they're looking at more curse tablets, hopefully not trying to figure them out. Well, well, well. The timeline deception part 2 already got twice as many views as my best video did last week. So we're going to be answering any questions, those parts when, she and others that, and I appreciate her work so much. And I'm answering these in hopefully the spirit that she's asking them, looking for answers. I've got some.
Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is the second part of my previous video where I explained an alternative view of human history and our place within it. If you haven't seen part 1, there's a link in the description below. In this video, I'll go over what I refer to as the dual timelines, and then I'll share some additional thoughts. Now that you're familiar with the timeline I explained in part 1, we're going to use a more simplified version for this video. You'll see that I'm throwing out a second resurrection date of 1820, but the exact date has not yet been confirmed. So to begin,
So that's where we'll begin. She's saying 1919 because things get really weird around 1812. I'm all about that too. But you got to I back it up another 100 years between what they call 1666 and 1814, 1812. And I guess we have time to go over it live. We have only these clues and she'll show you some, and she went over them strong in her first video, which is just, it's the way I would like to make videos, just short, concise, boom, the graphics match. What was I looking up? Daniel. He's a prophet, right? Yes, he is. And Daniel chapter 12 gives us our hint, our clue to the timeline. because it says that things are sealed up until the end of time. That's not the end of the age, the eons. We're not confusing, we're not getting into it. These are when many shall be purified, made white, and refined. And that's why when Revelation chapter 20 ends with the city and the rescue of Gog and Magog, boom, the next thing is, and books were open, it's a great white throne. And it says in verse 11, and from the time that the daily sacrifice is taken away, and that happened in 70 AD, they could no longer perform the daily sacrifices. They sacrificed a pig on it, and then they tore down every stone that was building it together. They had what was called the sacrifice taken away because of the abomination of desolation would be set up on it. And after that time, when the temple was destroyed, and Armageddon would rain upon them, because that was the end of that generation, and they would all see him return as promised. It says, there shall be 1,290 days. Blessed is he who waits and comes to the 1,335 days. But go your way till the end, not the end of any age, eon, era. This is the end, the end. It's completely clear. For you shall rest, and you will sleep, because you will sleep. And then when they open up, he's talking to Daniel. He's not one who was in the first resurrection, because he wasn't a prophet or a martyr at the time when the witness of Jesus Christ gets them. And you will rise to your inheritance at the end of the days, the end of the days. So there are two separations. There are the 1,290 days, and then another 45. If you focus on a point in history that recently and we know changed, I consider it September 9th, 11, 2001. And if you go back the 1,290 days, you would end up from at the year 2001 in that era between when they had the Julian calendar change and the Gregorian calendar change, and they flipped and boom, added that 1,000 years at that period. That leaves us with the 290. So there's the 1,000 years we can account for as the wheat and the tare grew together in that millennium. 290 days is what takes us back, because so like in math, those thousands would cancel each other. We're left with the 290 of what we have as known history they've supplied. That's what takes us back to that calendar era. And from that time period of 2001, blessed is he who waits and comes to the 1,335 days. You will be blessed. You will be blessed. And I'll show you how. In Revelation, that's not hard. You just go down to the last book on the list. And you got to aim a little bit closer here, because in chapter 20, it's not the end. Satan's bound. I believe, why don't we keep this book in order? The beast and the false prophet, those are the two people thrown into the lake of fire after the battle of Armageddon. Satan is given a different punishment first. He is, well, I'll just read it to you. Then I saw an angel coming down from heaven, having the key to the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold of the dragon, that serpent of old, who is the devil and Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years, and cast him into a bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, so that he should deceive the nations no more, until the 1,000 years were finished. But after these things, he must be released for a little while. Okay. And Verse 7. Now, when the 1,000 years have expired, Satan will be released from his prison and will go out to deceive the nations which are in the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together for battle, those whose number is as the sand of the sea. They went up on the breadth of the earth and surrounded the camp of the saints and the beloved city. And fire came down from God out of heaven and devoured them. The devil who deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet already are. And they together will be tormented day and night forever and ever. Verse 11, and this is still just rolling with that same vision. Then I saw the great white throne and him who sat on it, and whose face the earth and heaven fled away, and there was found no place in them. And you know what they were going to do? And the dead were judged according to their works by the things which were written in the books.
Again, I believe that it's been easy for the enemy to deceive us about anything on the before Christ or BC timeline, because conveniently nothing is ever dated from this period. The people did not keep track of the year because there was really no anchor point. We can be told pretty much anything about artifacts from this time. I believe that the practice of keeping track of the year truly began in year 1 of the millennial kingdom. I believe this is the true meaning of AD, or the Latin phrase Anno Domini, which means in the year of the Lord. There's usually some variation of this phrase in old books and manuscripts. Because of the large amount of dated artifacts that have survived from the millennial kingdom, Satan has had to provide many cover stories for all of the evidence he couldn't destroy. He has told us that the phrase Anno Domini, or in the year of the Lord, means from the birth of Jesus. However, I believe that the true year 1 is the beginning of Jesus' kingdom here on earth. Since this period would last just 1,000 literal years, there was a reason to keep track of time, as you could say it serves as a countdown. During the kingdom, a 3-digit dating system was used, usually preceded by the letter I. It is believed that this letter I stands for Isus or Jesus, which means Jesus in Greek and Latin. There seems to be several other variations of the spelling and pronunciation of Jesus' name just within Latin alone, as well as other languages. Sometimes there are other characters that precede the 3-digit date, such as a J or lowercase I, as well as unfamiliar characters that may be derived from Greek, Aramaic, or Hebrew. One of the best ways I've found for finding examples of a non-numeric character in the year is by looking at genuine coins that have survived from the millennial kingdom. Here we have a coin that we would be told is from the year 1621. However, we see that the character in the first digit is different from the numeral 1 in the last digit, and therefore we can conclude that the first digit is not a numeral 1. Here we have another coin that we would be told is from the year 1700, but obviously the character in the first digit does not resemble a numeral 1, and there is a large space separating it from the 3-digit year. We can deduce that this coin is not from 1700, but the year 700 of the kingdom. Here we have another more subtle example, but we can see that the relief of the letter I in the date is more refined and congruent with the other letters, while the numerals are more consistent with each other. Again, we would be told that this artifact is from 1890, but I would determine the date on this coin reads I-890, meaning year 890 of the kingdom of Jesus. There are many more examples, and you'll have no trouble finding your own. It's one of those things where once you see it, you can't unsee it. Dating coins and other artifacts can be tricky, because beginning around the so-called 1800s, we begin to see artifacts that have been created by the enemy with a genuine numeral 1 in the first digit of the date. This is around the time that Satan was released from his prison and began the timeline deception. He began inserting false dates into all kinds of objects, including backdating inscriptions in books, on monuments and architecture, various works of art, and more. How exactly he pulled this off, I couldn't easily tell you. Lastly, one final example. If we had an object or event that was dated with the number 1900, that would be over here on the timeline in our little season. But if we found an object that was dated I-900, that would actually fall back here in the late kingdom. Conversely, if we have a pre-reset date such as 1500, that is generally the same year as I-500. If it seems a little confusing, well, it was meant to be, but you'll get the hang of it. In addition to the numeric dating system, the year was also commonly denoted in what we call Roman numerals. I have a feeling that perhaps Roman numerals are to be interpreted a little differently than what we've been told, but that's not something I'll be investigating right now. If you're someone who researches these sorts of things, then you're aware of what is regarded as the 1,000 years of added history that's been injected into our timeline. In all actuality, it appears to be about 800 to 850 years. I believe the entire reason that Satan has added approximately 800 years into our timeline is to once again provide a cover story for the things he couldn't destroy. As I showed just a couple examples of, there are innumerable artifacts that have the letter I or J preceding the year. We are told that an artifact dated I-500 would be the year 1500, but by doing so, a lot of fake and exaggerated history will need to be added in. This is all in a huge effort to hide the millennial kingdom from the people of our time. The more you learn about the true nature of our past, the more profoundly obvious it is that Jesus Christ is the ultimate truth, and it would definitely be a lot harder to go out and deceive the nations if we all understood we were riding off the coattails of Christ's kingdom. So with that being said, I believe that we're actually in approximately the year 1200. A more precise date can only be pinpointed by figuring out the exact year in the false timeline that the so-called reset took place. If year 1 truly begins with the start of the millennial kingdom, then 1,000 years have passed, plus the 200 or so years that we are already into the little season, putting us in approximately the year 1200. If we were to continue to base time off of the birth of Christ, then you would just add 70 years. This is how I see things for now, and I hope this helps you understand the dating system and how the two timelines relate to each other. Now I'm going to go through some additional thoughts and questions. In part 1, I said that the saints go up to heaven at the end of the kingdom. I said this to keep things simple at the time, but I actually think that this may not be the case. The Bible states that the armies will surround the camp of the saints and the beloved city, indicating that they're here on earth somewhere. Perhaps the camp of the saints is located in a region we aren't allowed to explore. In part 1, I talked about the second resurrection and how those who took part in it were simply referred to as the rest of the dead. I'm going to describe this part in just a little more detail. I believe that these people lived before Christ was ever born, therefore they did not get the chance to make the choice of whether to accept or reject Christ. Accepting Christ is the only way to be grafted back into the spirit realm.
Have caused me more trouble in witnessing than probably any.
I have completely changed my mind about that, antithesis to the idea of separation of church and state. Furthermore, but after discovering the true nature of our past, I have naturally begun to fall in line with what is generally considered to be Catholicism. Conversely, if you already subscribe to the general ideas of Catholicism, then with this new revelation, you're likely going to understand your own beliefs and where they come from on a much deeper level.
Okay. Wow. How did I start this? Where was my notebook? Here's the problem. That's not a white world. That's the whitewash. The Roman Catholic world. This should be a fad once you reconsider the whitewashing and what they did, the most noble form of inquisition The Moors have caused me more trouble in witnessing than probably anything I started off with. The treaty, all treaties with them, it's been whitewashed how we whites broke every treaty on purpose. Their history, our history, whitewashed. Tom Sawyer's Fence, whitewashed. Black Hawk Down, Black Hebrew Israelites, whitewashed. And cursed is everybody on a tree. I know the lynching, it was due to happen. This is a judgment. We all know that. And we started with the computers of where we're at now. And anything and anybody that would lead you down the road to Rome is not your friend.
You will see that the millennial kingdom is rife with symbolism that you may find off-putting. However, I have begun to re-examine these things and be open-minded to the idea that they meant something else entirely, or that the characters may not be guilty of their crimes. During the time that we live in, or the little season, many of God's holy symbols and institutions have been usurped by the enemy, and thus their reputations have been sullied. I have begun to make the distinction that they had a different meaning within God's kingdom, and now have the opposite connotation within the little season. Lastly, one of the biggest questions that you may have is, why are the so-called Greek gods omnipresent throughout a Christian empire? I have some theories on how they fit in, and I'm looking forward to making videos about this in the near future. I don't want to spoil the fun, but know that I'll be addressing this question soon. So now that we have a good foundation laid, I'm looking forward to covering a range of topics from this perspective. I hope to share the Millennial Kingdom with you, as during the onset of our new abnormal, I have found solace in exploring Tartaria. By gaining a deeper understanding of our past, I constantly learn new things about God, the spirit realm, and our true nature as human beings. I believe that all of the incredible works of art and architecture created during this time were not only for the people of the kingdom, but for the people of our time too. Furthermore, it gives us a glimpse into the aesthetical tastes of God Himself, and gives us a sneak peek into the splendor of what we will be building and exploring on the new earth. In my opinion, this is a wonderful place to focus our truth-seeking inclinations, for the world at large will always be nonsensical and upside down until the last day. Thanks for watching.
And I want to thank you for putting out such a professionally narrated and exhibited in such high quality. And I want to just, I want to hope that you can take on the whitewashing and the true history of what's going on, the eugenics. And this is not a white thing. And the Roman Catholic age of dominion and age of discovery, those things, those topics are going to be right there waiting for you. I need you to see this as I wrap it up. A video from August 15, 2016.
Well, I just want to have a little fun, talk fashion, because the topic speaks for itself. There's black people, they're dressed like the royals of the day because they were the royals of the day. I'm not going to get into how all of history has been changed. I'm just going to talk fashion. Let's talk fashion. Look at those earrings. Nice. Nice. That's nice too. That's the first weave. Gold. You can't go wrong. Rose gold. What I tell you? Rose gold. And the brooch on the head with the. Yeah, nobody's looking at you, buddy. Just fashion. Do you like my hat? I said you like my hat. Yeah, I'm better looking than everybody else, so just deal with it. I can beat you in chess. Sucker. Knock it off, you two. Gonna make me get my shirt dirty. There's a man. And for some reason that hat's working. Gold. And food. With the bow, he pulls it off. Oh yeah. No, I ain't playing you in chess. Forget about it. You spent how much? Like my hat? Does this blanket make my butt look fat? I'm king, damn it. So anyway, guy walks into a bar with a duck on his shoulder. Oh, it's hard to be the cutest girl in town. Damn it, this seal doesn't look anything like me. This coin doesn't look like me. Hey, what's that black guy doing surrounded by all those white guys like he's the king? What the heck? Let's talk fast. I can't see anything. Nice coat. Okay, armor. They say it adds 10 pounds. Go with the gold. Don't mess with that guy. That's an example of how they changed history. They found that was the painting and they'd restored it and they found out it was a black guy. St. Augustine. St. Augustine. He is our hero. Yeah. Nice vestment. I like it. There's my man. Nice vestment. I love it. Study it, huh? Look at that hairdo. There's the first guy wounded in the Revolutionary War, the Boston Massacre, they call it. That's Jesus sporting a robe. Stick around if you want to watch some other videos I've got. Do you see that headdress that guy's got on? I can show you people like that with the Indians of Native of America and the what do you call them? The Hussars of Poland. Both wore feathers in their hair. The Lord and his mom. Okay, I like earrings too. Nice earrings. Stay with the gold. Nice. Okay, what are you wearing, dude? Is that your Elizabethan ruffle or what? You like my hat, man? I asked you like my hat. I'll hit you with this. I'm still so damn good looking. Someday Samuel L. Jackson will wish he looked like me. I'm still smarter than all you punks. Kick your ass, settle down. Nice little collar, we're just talking fashion. I like it. I like the earrings. I like the pearls on the back of the bonnet there. I like the gold sash, the way of working with the purple. Gold earrings, of course. This guy, unfortunately, it looks like he can kick my ass. Yeah, he can kick my ass. Get chest through. It must be good. It's good to be king. I'm still so damn cute. Can't hardly stand it. Everybody hates me. I'm so much better looking than you. Suck it. Okay, there's the guy. Read his books. Listen to Augustine. He dresses good. He acts like a gentleman. He's a man. Augustine.